In this podcast episode, author and spiritual teacher Michael A. Singer returns to share insights from his 50 years of experience exploring consciousness, awakening, and inner freedom. The discussion spans a wide range of topics, including the nature of spiritual awakening, the role of resistance and acceptance in human experience, the interplay of mind and consciousness, handling trauma, the power of surrender, and the enduring presence of consciousness beyond physical death. Singer offers a blend of practical advice and profound mystical wisdom, grounded in both ancient teachings and modern understanding. Singer explains that spiritual awakening is not about acquiring something new, but about freeing oneself from the accumulated garbage stored within the mind and emotions, suppression, denial, and resistance that have been piled up over a lifetime. He emphasizes that we are all inherently connected to infinite consciousness, yet most experience a contraction of this vast awareness into a limited egoic identity formed by past experiences. Awakening means waking up to this larger consciousness and staying awake, rather than momentarily touching higher states and then falling back into egoic patterns. He highlights the role of willpower in maintaining this awakening by consistently choosing to release inner blocks rather than pushing discomfort away. The mantra, "I can handle this," serves as a practical grounding tool, reinforcing the capacity to accept reality as it is without resistance. According to Singer, the more we practice handling life's challenges without struggle, the more expansive and awake our consciousness becomes. A central theme is the distinction between resistance and acceptance. Resistance causes suffering by insisting reality conform to personal preferences, leading to anxiety, tension, and conflict. Acceptance, on the other hand, does not mean approval, but rather opening oneself to the facts of reality, no matter how unpleasant they may be, without internal struggle. Singer stresses that acceptance is the foundation for peace and clarity, which then allows compassionate and effective action in the world. He acknowledges that accepting injustices or hardships does not mean passivity or inaction, but requires a centered, calm presence from which one can truly help rather than merely reacting out of frustration. Compassion arises naturally when one recognizes that every person's perspective is unique, shaped by their individual life experiences. This understanding fosters patience and reduces judgment, offering a pathway to human connection even amid profound differences. Singer offers a metaphysical and scientific explanation of how consciousness operates. He points out that we do not see the world directly, but perceive vibrations and signals processed and rendered in the mind. Modern physics reveals that what we consider matter is actually manifestations of fields and waves, an omnipresent quantum field that resonates with infinite consciousness. Drawing parallels between ancient mysticism and cutting-edge science, Singer describes consciousness itself as the source and substance of all existence. He explains that the ego's focus on individual thoughts and emotions causes a contraction of awareness, obscuring this deeper unity with the universe. Spiritual practice, then, is about ceasing to fixate on the personal self and allowing consciousness to expand and merge with the whole. This perspective demystifies mystical experiences like nirvana or enlightenment as the natural state of consciousness when free from distraction. The fall from the garden metaphor illustrates humanity's drift from this original state of unity into separation and ego identification. According to Singer, the lower self consists of all the suppressed, uncomfortable emotions and unresolved experiences stored in the subconscious mind, what he sometimes calls garbage or thorns. This lower self generates inner turmoil as the free flow of energy, Shakti, is blocked and diverted through reactive patterns and addictions to emotional chaos. The higher self is the witnessing consciousness that observes these patterns and emotions without being entangled by them. This part of the self is always present as the observer within. The process of awakening involves strengthening this witnessing presence so that one can watch emotional upheavals without becoming overwhelmed or reactive. Over time, the distinction between higher and lower self diminishes, leading to integration and greater inner freedom. The discussion addresses how trauma, including intergenerational or even past life imprints, can reside in the subconscious and influence present behavior unconsciously. Singer stresses that although these deep-seated patterns can feel overwhelming, nothing is irreversibly cemented in place. The commitment to gradually letting go and learning to handle difficult emotions is essential. He acknowledges the challenge in this process, emphasizing the need for incremental steps, starting with small instances of resistance in everyday life. Mastering simple moments leads to increased capacity to face and release greater burdens. The inner energy blocked by such unresolved material can eventually flow freely, facilitating healing and spiritual liberation. Singer clarifies common misconceptions about surrender, emphasizing that spiritual surrender is an internal process rather than passive acceptance of harmful external circumstances. It means releasing internal resistance and emotional struggle while responding with clarity, compassion, and wisdom in the outer world. His surrender experiment involved consciously allowing life's events to unfold without imposing controlling resistance, thereby experiencing greater alignment with universal flow. However, this does not mean blindly accepting anything without discernment. Instead, it is about surrendering judgments and preferences inside so one can act from a place of presence rather than reaction. A vital practical component of Singer's teaching is cultivating awareness of resistance as it arises in the body. Often, emotional reactions begin with subtle somatic sensations, such as tightness, constriction, or shortness of breath, before manifesting as anger or fear. Developing the ability to notice these early cues allows one to interrupt habitual reactivity. Techniques such as pausing, mindful breathing, especially deep belly breathing, and simply noticing bodily sensations without judgment are powerful tools to calm the nervous system and create a space for conscious response. Physical movements like shaking or jumping can also help dispel energetic buildup caused by stress or fear. Cultivating this awareness requires practice and patience, but eventually rewires the brain and body to respond more skillfully to challenges. The hosts and Singer discuss how misunderstandings in communication often arise from activated personal programming, the third layer beyond what was said and how it is interpreted. People frequently react based on deeply ingrained insecurities, past wounds, or beliefs rather than objective facts. Learning to distinguish between actual events and the meanings we assign them prevents unnecessary suffering. Also, developing the practice of pausing before responding helps de-escalate conflicts and fosters more compassionate, constructive interactions. Taking breaks, stating needs clearly, e.g., "I need some time to think about that," and returning to discussions when calmer are ways to maintain emotional availability and prevent destructive escalation. Singer addresses the fundamental question of what consciousness is and what happens after physical death. He explains that consciousness is not confined to the body or brain, but is the fundamental essence of all reality, omnipresent and eternal. Drawing from both scientific insights and mystical traditions, Singer describes death as an illusion. Only the physical form ceases, while consciousness continues, changing vibrational frequencies and moving to higher planes of existence. This process continues until the ego dissolves completely and merges back into the universal source, experiencing the unity that mystical traditions call God, nirvana, or enlightenment. He illustrates this with references to biblical and yogic teachings, portraying the journey of consciousness as an ongoing expression of divine evolution. The podcast briefly touches on the divergence between original spiritual teachings and how many organized religions have evolved into dogmatic systems, often marked by fear, control, and division. Singer honors the true mystical core of figures like Christ, noting that incarnations of enlightened beings were about union and love rather than judgment. This perspective opens the door for individuals disillusioned with traditional religion to explore spirituality authentically, rooted in universal consciousness and personal experience, rather than external authority. Singer concludes by sharing an excerpt from his forthcoming book, which talks about the nature of love as a spiritual energy distinct from human emotional needs. Human love is described as conditional and often creates attachments, whereas spiritual love flows unconditionally from an open and unblocked heart. He explains that as the heart remains open despite difficulties, the individual experiences an inner fulfillment that transcends dependency on external conditions. This leads eventually to merging with the boundless source of consciousness, a state of overwhelming love, bliss, and the dissolution of ego described across many spiritual traditions. Throughout the episode, the hosts intersperse personal reflections, stories from their lived experience, and sponsor messages. These elements provide relatable context for listeners and underscore the practical applicability of Singer's teachings to everyday life challenges. Michael Singer bridges the gap between science and spirituality by pointing out how modern physics discoveries about quantum fields and the non-material nature of particles align with ancient yogic insights into consciousness. This convergence supports a worldview in which perception is understood as a mental construction, and the material world is seen as a dynamic play of energy within a unified field of awareness. Such integrative understanding invites open curiosity and humility, encouraging people to explore consciousness beyond conventional sensory experience without dismissing scientific rigor. Despite the lofty metaphysical content, Singer emphasizes that awakening is not an escape from worldly life, but a deeper engagement with it from a place of inner freedom. He describes his own life as a balance of spiritual practice with mundane activities, business, and social interaction. The insights offered provide listeners with tools to navigate everyday frustrations, interpersonal conflicts, and societal challenges with greater ease and clarity. Awakening enables one to live amidst chaos without being overwhelmed, taking responsible, compassionate action while maintaining peace within. A profound insight in the episode is the acknowledgement that many people are unconsciously addicted to their own emotional turmoil. This addiction manifests in repeated cycles of resistance, blame, and reactivity that feed off stored pain and unprocessed experiences. Singer suggests that true spiritual progress involves breaking free from this addiction by cultivating observation and acceptance. By not feeding the cycle with further resistance or suppression, the energy is allowed to flow more freely, gradually dissolving ingrained suffering. While recognizing the spiritual truths we all possess, Singer and the hosts agree that growth requires intentional and persistent practice. The path to awakening involves steadily increasing capacity to handle life's energies without contraction. Practice includes meditation, breathwork, self-inquiry, compassionate communication, and learning to pause and notice internal states. Over time, these practices recondition habitual reactions, leading to expansive awareness and authentic inner joy. Singer emphasizes the ripple effect of individual awakening on broader societal transformation. Since every person has unique programming shaped by their experiences, collective change arises from each individual cultivating acceptance, compassion, and clarity within themselves. He encourages listeners to focus on their own inner work as the most powerful contribution to making the world a more loving and conscious place. Recognizing that many people come to these topics with skepticism or no spiritual background, Singer proposes starting from the simple question, "Are you in there?" inviting individuals to explore direct awareness of their inner experience without jargon or dogma. This approach honors personal experience as the foundation for spiritual inquiry, allowing people to gradually discover the witnessing presence within without coercion or expectation. A recurring idea is the futility of trying to control external circumstances, including other people and the environment. Singer likens this to the impossibility of controlling the weather or the quantum field. True freedom is achieved by surrendering inner attachment to outcomes and preferences, opening to the flow of life as it is. This surrender is not passive resignation, but empowered engagement from a centered, composed place. The hosts highlight the transformative power of awe in opening the heart and mind to the vast intelligence and mystery of existence. Moments of awe help loosen rigid mental constructs, increase appreciation, and enhance connection to the greater field of consciousness. Building a bank of positive and awe-filled moments supports resilience and expands capacity to let go of attachment and fear. Singer acknowledges the harsh realities of political unrest, social injustice, and cultural polarization. He advises beginning from acceptance of these facts instead of resistance, which only intensifies suffering. By cultivating inner peace and clarity, individuals are empowered to help rather than react, contributing more effectively to societal healing. This stance honors the gravity of external problems while prioritizing personal responsibility for emotional regulation and conscious action. Throughout the episode, Singer weaves in references to mystical teachings from Christianity, Buddhism, Islam, Kabbalah, and Hinduism. He highlights their shared insights on ego dissolution, unconditional love, unity, and the journey of the soul. He encourages a non-dogmatic, experiential spirituality that transcends institutional limitations and connects directly to the universal consciousness all people share. In the final metaphysical discussion, Singer assures listeners that consciousness does not die. Physical death is a transformation in the vibrational expression of consciousness rather than annihilation. This view reorients fear of death and the sense of separation, nurturing hope and curiosity about the soul's ongoing journey through the many planes of reality until ultimate reunion with the divine source.